it's going to be very, very interesting. I'm really curious to see how this plays out.
Oh, it's going to be interesting. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. I mean, it's like any other time when I'm not happy about what's going on politically, I just put my head in the sand for a while and I go, I'll just check in a few months. But I cannot stop reading on my phone and the papers. Like, this is like we're living through a part of history that's probably more turbulent than any other presidential transition.
Do you think this is
except for Johnson and Kennedy?
This is like a big metaphorical question, but because of like Obama lived through the age of like the bursting of the internet space and its involvement in politics, you know, of like Twitter and Instagram and all this shit.
This is bigger.
This is even bigger than
America's midlife breakdown right now.
This is it.
Yeah. This is us bottoming out. Halfway. This is the halfway point.
I hope we got another 200 years.
I think Trump is president for 20 years or 3 days, or it's like something terrible.
Do you worry about something terrible? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, because I think he had a real control over his message in America. You know, he has friends who own the tabloids. I remember flying with him once. Never mind. But it's like
I remember flying with him once. No, fuck you. Go back. You can't just fly past that.
Some of his best friends own tabloids.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And those are his boys.
It's like the Koch family.
They had all the bad stories locked up, but now when it starts happening in Russia and stuff, he doesn't have quite the hold on it. People can really get to him. And then, you know, he's not young. Yeah, I worry about something bad happening. It may not end well for him. You know, it's really a tricky one. Another part of me says, get behind it because you're going to be around for the rest of my life.
The Glenn Greenwald thing is an interesting angle, though, because Glenn Greenwald is a really respected journalist. He's the guy who exposed WikiLeaks. He's a guy who a lot of people go to, and he's not without his criticisms. Right. I mean, a lot of people criticize him. He's had this ongoing feud with Sam Harris. But if you look at like what he's talking about here, if there's any shred of truth to it, that you're seeing like this old institution attack this incoming guy and do it in a foolish way that actually kind of strengthens this disbelief that people have in the news. Mm-hmm. Like if they make up some crazy story and you hear CNN talking about it and all these other people talking about it, unsubstantiated reports that involved lewd activities and golden showers, like what? Who the fuck is doing this? Yeah. Like who's doing this? Like what are you trying to do? Because by doing this, especially when it looks obvious and dumb like that did, it makes his case look stronger. Exactly. It's almost like something that he would do to attack himself.
Yeah.
Like that's like how Nero burnt Rome. You know, like you might do something like that, attack yourself so that you look vulnerable.
Do you think he did that?
No, I don't.
That true, I don't. But what he's great at is a counterpunch. I've been living in New York City during his entire reign of popularity. He's a great counterpuncher. So if something happens, even if you perceive it as bad for him, he knows how to work that.
That's what he talked about with Kanye West. When he was talking about Kanye, he says,
I
always
saw him do
counterpunch.
that every time. A friend would say, "Oh boy, this is really going to sink him," and I go, "Watch." I go, "No."
But you can't run a country like that. You can win an office, but you can't.
Who knows?
Who knows what he's going to do?
How do you know?
Who knows what he's going to do? I'm just super curious.
He probably knows, but we don't know.
Yeah.
You know, if you're right about saying that he's never going to leave, then obviously that's going to become a problem. But if you're not right about it, and he does manage to show some flaws in the system and expose them,
then it could be great. Sure. Maybe
no one else is going to do it other than Bernie. If Bernie won, and obviously they were conspiring to keep Bernie out, but if Bernie won, we could have seen some really weird changes in the system.
Yeah, I think so.
And overall, like he would be a mood shifter. Mm-hmm. Like Bernie would be a guy that is like that's kind of what a lot of people are looking for. Someone who's not money oriented, someone who's like for the people, someone who lives a fairly simple life for a guy like that. Someone who's
like
never
the Pope. When the Pope got in, you were like, oh, he cares about the poor. Bernie was like the Pope. They became friends, the whole thing.
Yeah, like the Pope got rid of that throne. He went with a more
casual dress.
Yeah, it's in a lot of ways like what Bernie would have represented, I think, is someone who's not of the same cloth as we're used to. Someone who's like concerned about equality across the board, above,
and like systems broke. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's it. You're right. No, systems.
And then so instead of the guy who should or the woman who should or could have, You know, they're fighting the wrong game all the time. You know, Hillary was probably a great, smart person, but you know, you drift into distractions, and she's trying to.
Well, there's also
and then something weird happens, like the wiring goes haywire, and the guy who's the most popular at something completely different gets in there on a freak of nature.
He also this country's gone through in 50 years.
You can't tell me it's not amusing. It's definitely amusing.
Yeah.
There's a little part of glee in your heart where it goes, what?
Yeah.
The Supreme Court it's like seeing the whole thing, you know.
Well, as comedians, it's, you know,
I think we all see everything.
Something to talk about for the next 4 years.
It made everyone's life a lot more interesting all of a sudden.
But don't you think that there's a certain amount of intimidation about criticizing him?
Yeah.
Like there's some real intimidation that comes from him. He's a legitimate, powerful man.
Would you want to be on his enemies list?
No.
Fuck no.
No, it'd be horrible. And everybody feels like that. And with great power comes great responsibility. And that's one of the things that people are really terrified of with a guy like that, because he's got so much power and so much influence.
He didn't used to. He was a joke in a weird way to a lot of people. But I always knew that he could actually do things. Like when you see him in New York, you go, all of a sudden, you're like, holy shit, there's a tower there that was not there.
Yeah.
People think he's willy-nilly, like shooting from the hip. He's patient. Builds buildings.
Yeah.
It's different.
When I grew up in New York, he was, you know, when he was a celebrity in New York and not the country, he was just a slumlord. That's how we talked about him in my family. You know, he was just a guy. He was a guy who had suits against him. He owned projects and it was pretty well known back then that he was a slumlord.
Yeah.
Twitter's a hobby for him. I think building is his occupation, and that's a really hard thing to do. I remember the skating rink popping up, and he was always talking about taking over swaths of land in New York. When you were lucky to get a little apartment somewhere, this guy was going to buy like the whole where the trains were, the subways used to be. It's like you were in all of that. You couldn't help it, even if you didn't. And his politics didn't emerge till much later. He just kind of kept it cool and was just like a playboy and you know, a personality, and you know, it was like a kick to see him around. He always loved a good joke. You know, he was generous. So I get it. A lot of smart, rich New Yorkers. I'm not surprised. Some of the smartest, most successful people I know in New York supported him.
Do you think, though, that at the level of responsibility that you have when you become the president and the amount of power that you have, do you think that anybody can really manage that correctly?
Well, that's
it's a ridiculous position, and this is one of the things it's exposing. This is exposing how ridiculous the position is. That you could get someone who's just this one popular person that gets into place and run this entire thing. Like one person running anything is crazy.
Well, are we overstating how much the president really runs?
Look what he's doing.
No, but I'm saying once you're in office, do you think president has as much power as people?
We're going to find out. We're going to find out what kind of power he has. Because look what he's doing. Look what you're talking about with the press corps. Look what you're talking about with
you don't just get power. You
security.
Accumulate power. He's accumulating leverage and power, and
by putting people around him that he wants.
Fascinating.
He can't operate without his family. He's always going to have his family around. It's like you don't just suddenly tell an IndyCar driver, tomorrow you're driving a NASCAR. It's like he's been doing it a certain way, and that's
but his son and his daughter, or his two sons, they can't advise him on policy because they're running his companies. They have to never have a conversation with him again about the businesses or politics.
Yeah, sure.
Come on. Come on.
That sounds so ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's just no fucking way.
But even if that's how it is, it's still his family.
Yeah.
But you know what?
That's so weird that they won't let him talk to him about it.
He got it. He's going to be the richest guy in history. He's going to be.
They say that Putin
mythical figure.
Do you hear about some oligarch that got arrested? Said that he thinks Putin's the richest guy in history.
No, dude.
Is it possible? I mean,
he will become.
You're going to bet against it?
He'll become bigger, larger than life. This will make him larger than life. He'll be like a fucking. It will be a myth.
If there's a huge scandal,
it's not going away. He's got a million kids and family.
I don't know.
Be around forever.
I mean, if you think about what's come out in the last year, I guess
scandal makes him stronger. Billy Bush got fucking trampled on the bus thing. I think it just made him stronger.
Do you think if this whole story about the Russian prostitutes pissing on him got corroborated, do you think it would hurt him?
I read someone said that they thought he fucking started that shit. I was like, that's a fucking interesting angle. What if he was like,
yeah, that's what Joe was saying. Yeah.
That's what I was just saying.
Yeah, like why not?
How high are you?
Yeah.
Hi.
Even if I don't think.
Well, I don't think that's the case, but I do
he knows
think
how
that
to turn that stuff around. Pretty quick.
Those attacks are foolish because so you've already proven that he's Kevlar. Like you can, he got past grab the pussy.
There's no video.
Well, so then what are they? But then conversely, then what? Then you can't do anything. Then so what's the legitimate thing that you can come out about him? If you present real facts, they get kind of pushed away. If you present these crazy news stories, it just fuels the fire. So what do you do then?
It's a good question.
What does the opposition do? Because anything they come up with is either fake news to him or it's something crazy that makes people go, dude, how funny was that they pissed on that fucking bed that Obama... I mean, it just becomes like a social bit.
The worst thing that could take place is that people decide while he's in power that he can't be in power. People decide that there can't be a president anymore. We've decided as a nation that we're going to abolish this and we're going to start a whole new system of government. That is where shit could get really crazy.
That would get crazy.
That's what Susan Sarandon wants.
Does she want that?
Yeah, she remember when he was running for president, she goes, maybe Trump should win because maybe it's time we do have a revolution in the streets. Maybe we need to change it. It's like, yeah, that's easy to say when you're on the fifth in a 5-story brownstone with guards, not fucking living in the projects during a revolution.
It's harder for a rich person to say that. A poor person has nothing to lose and would call for revolution, but when a rich person does it, I think she's got something.
Or
do you think they'd be coming for her first?
Probably.
Yeah.
When I talked to Trump, somebody said, how'd you do that? He's like Hitler. I go, if he's Hitler, you'll be glad I'm friends with him because I'm going to, otherwise I'm giving up your fucking
schmoozing us in
home address.
Man. Well, it's bizarre too because he's actually like publicly in support of Putin. And he talks about Putin being a smart guy.
He's a businessman, so he's talks with whoever he's been friends with.
Right.
That's how it works.
Whoever's had
None
good
of this
money
should be taken away from him or a surprise. He'll figure all that out. But he can't pretend that these aren't his pals. And if you meet somebody famous once or twice and they're nice to you, that's all plus his stuff's deep. He would go over there. He would bring TV shows there. All that stuff. We're a client. We're another piece of commerce in his portfolio of how he does business. So when he picks up the phone and he knows some guy in Japan, of course he's going to mention his properties, and that's how he gets going. That's how he gets going.
What if that works? Really?
Well, that's what
if
Putin
that's
did.
A better system?
Yeah, Putin used government and private ownership to amass fortunes. But and then get his friends' fortunes.
It's almost going to take something like this to make people realize that this is a ridiculous system. I mean, otherwise we would never figure it out. We just still look for a better and better version of the impossible person.
Maybe it's a great system. Maybe we're all looking at it wrong. It's such that we've tested it. Anybody can become president.
Well, maybe it is a good system because it's got that and it's got all the checks and balances in place. I mean, maybe it is a good system because of all the bureaucracy.
It's like something beyond politics and what's right and wrong, and
I've heard that argued before.
Dynasty is not the right thing, so it's time for civilization had a great run. What else you got?
Well, what's crazy is that if
it's as dark as it can fucking get.
How much potential? See, here's the thing: there are wars going on right now.
Come on,
there's wars going on right now, and we'll always say,
"How about a fucking waitress?"
Down here?
The war's going on, no drink.
But there's wars going on right now, but they're just not going on right here. Are we just naive? Are we naive to not understand the danger?
I think it might be coming.
Yeah,
you really think so?
Naive.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Really?
I do. Yeah. What would stop it at this point? Dude, I don't think anything.
Like a war with Russia?
There aren't a lot of barriers. No. War with England or France or Germany.
No. Why would we go to war with Germany or France or England?
Anything's possible. Leaking.
Well, also what you define.
Warfare.
I mean, cyber warfare is what it's all about. I mean, we had natural boundaries before, but now you see that they can hack into the FBI and the CIA and fucking
there's a known unknown. now, and this, don't presume anything.
It's true. It's true.